Imagine this. You join a server for the very first time and you're eager to jump into the wilderness and get yourself kitted up so that you can actually do something. From gathering wood, upgrading your very first pickaxe to stone, and negotiate your dietary requirements with the local fauna, to exploring the overworld and looting every single thing that you can find, up until you find your very first cave, fighting tooth and nail for every single scrap that you can find. Eventually you end up with a full suit of iron armor as well as iron tools. You decide to head out to the Nether, and this is where you engage in piglin bartering and also decimating the entire Blaze population. You see, you need all of this to go to the end. And why do you want to do that? Well, because we all know the end has juicy loot. You find the stronghold and enter the end. Now luckily, your predecessors already took care of the dragon, but that's not really why you're here. You see, you're here to go to one thing and one thing only. End cities. But to your dismay, you find that they've mostly been looted. Every chest, every shulker, every boat, every elytra, heck, they even took the ender chests and brewing stands. You're now forced to travel hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of blocks in the end dimension, hoping to find one end city that had not yet been looted. But unfortunately, with the meager amount of blocks that you came along with, you find yourself stranded. Thousands of blocks away from the starting island, not near any waypoint. At this point, it's just easier to start over. But what if it didn't have to be that way? What if you could just simply go from end city to end city, and whenever you see it's been looted, just continue on your merry way, using your main method of transportation, which just happens to involve an ice bridge as well as a boat. Yes, I'm talking about the ice bridge machine in Minecraft 1.21.8. You see, this method of travel has been lost since Minecraft 1.18 or so. But before we go into how this machine works, let's talk about why this machine works. You see, the variants built by Ilmango and Co. used to use waterlogged stairs to move around their machines. But unfortunately, as you can see, interacting with waterlogged stairs in modern Minecraft just makes the water disappear. So you can no longer push or pull waterlogged stairs. But that got me thinking, what would happen if I interacted with frosted ice? You see, if I push frosted water, would that actually turn into water? And if I pull it, would it also turn into a water source? And the answer is, yes, it does. So a lot of you would say, well, that's not technically moving water, but hear me out. If I want to move this water source block into this slot over here, I could just equip Frostwalker boots, push it with a piston, and now I've moved a water source in modern Minecraft. And similarly, if I just use it on the piston to pull, I've also just moved a water source in modern Minecraft. That is amazing, and the whole premise of how this machine is going to work. Now, I'll be the first to admit that, pushing one block or water source block around isn't really that impressive. The real question is, how does it interact when you have two water source blocks next to each other? So if I have a setup like this and I pull one of them, yes, both of them melt and a new water source is formed. So if you just repeatedly do this or have a machine that does this for you, you will end up with an ice bridge builder. But before we go into that, let's talk a little bit about frosted ice. Frosted ice will remain frozen unless it's exposed directly to light. So as you can see now, currently it is exposed to light level of 13, which causes it to melt. Now, when you're wearing Frostwalker boots, you will be able to freeze it. So as you can see, I have Frostwalker 2 on these boots, and you should be able to freeze this water source block. Now, you can't freeze it if you're below it. Even by half a block, you cannot freeze the water source. Similarly, you won't be able to freeze it if you are higher than the water source block. But as long as you are either exactly at the level of, or at least half a slab above the water source, it will freeze. But at the end of the day, you don't have to be the person to be freezing it with your own feet. In fact, you can just use an armor stand, and that will also interact with any water sources around it. Now, With armor stands, they tend to kind of stand at one location, unless you move them. So I've built this little demonstration to show you that you can actually move an armor stand using pistons, and it will freeze water. But over here you see it actually didn't freeze the water on this side. And that's because we have blocks above the water source. And that could be anything from fences, half slabs, trapdoors, string, even other water will prevent this armor stand with frostwalker boots from freezing the water. Now it is worth noting that the pistons need to have a slime block, because as you can see, I just pushed that armor stand and it definitely has frostwalker on it. See, it does have frostwalker on it, but it didn't freeze the water when I pushed it with a normal block. It only worked when I pushed it with a slime block. So there you see, but there it didn't do anything. So it is important to make sure that you push the armor stand using a slime block to freeze the water. Right, so I've built a little demonstration here just to show you what happens when you interact with ice. Now I do have string there because I don't want that water to freeze. So if you interact with ice using a piston, it will melt all of the water, right? Which then means you need to use an armor stand to freeze all of the water. So the big question is, how many blocks does this affect? Because if you interact with ice, you won't have an endless trail of, pistons and armor stands to interact and freeze the water again. Now I'm going to tell you, I've tested this, and I'm not joking when I say that at a 0 tick rate, it will melt all the frosted ice for thousands of blocks. It doesn't care about your simulation distance, render distance, it doesn't care. You have been warned. So let's talk about how that works, because naturally sometimes whenever you interact with frosted ice, sometimes it doesn't melt everything, other times it does. For example, if I break this block, only that one block had broken. But if I break this block, everything gets melted into water. Now why is that? So let me show you a little bit about ice adjacency. I'm going to do it in terms of these carpets. So I'm going to break this block here, and when I break it, it's going to turn into water. When that happens, all adjacent ice blocks will receive a signal to check if it should melt or not. So this ice block over here will first start off by checking if there's any adjacent ice blocks to it. Now remember, this is already water, so it can't count that as ice. And because it doesn't have any other adjacent ice, it will turn into water. Now there's no more ice around it, so that's where this sequence ends. Similarly with this one, it's going to check if there's adjacent ice. This is already water, so it's going to pick up that there's one adjacent ice block, but one is not enough to save it. Now because this ice block turned into water, it's going to notify its adjacent ice blocks to also check if it should melt. So this ice block's going to check, and it's going to find two adjacent ice blocks, which is going to save it, which means it's not going to turn into water, it's just going to stay ice. Now with this side over here, we're going to check whether or not it has adjacent ice blocks. It has one, but it's not enough to save it, so it's going to melt. It then lets its neighbor know that it should check if it should melt. It checks, it only has one ice block, and so it melts. So it notifies its neighbor that it's supposed to check, only has one, melts. Notifies its neighbor, only has one, melts. Notifies its neighbor, only has one, melts. Notifies its neighbor, only has one, melts. And now finally, notifies its neighbor, but it has two adjacent ice blocks, so it is going to be saved, which means that I predict when I break that ice blocks, everything will melt except for these 4 blocks of ice. Let's see how accurate that actually was. There we go. And that is how ice adjacency works. So now that we've established that there is a way to move ice without melting all of it, you can build a machine something similar to this as a prototype. So whenever I give it an input, it's going to pull away ice blocks. It's not going to melt everything due to the adjacency, and then you can just use frostwalker boots. Let me just snatch these to freeze the water, and then you can repeat, pull out ice blocks, move water sources, use boots to freeze the water. And you can repeat this process, and then inevitably you will have an ice bridge builder that can run into the void and build you a bridge of ice. So let me demonstrate how my machine works. You see, you just jump on top of this machine, and then you can grab a few rails from the storage that you have on it. I think like 5 or 6 should do. You then jump into the driver's seat, look forward, and then just hold down right click. Now what will happen is every time you place down a rail, the machine will fire, which will then push it, the rail will break, and then allow you to place a new one. So it's like a semi-automatic method. I'd recommend having like 3 or 4 rails, just so that if there's lag, you can still keep on going. So I did mention semi-automatic mode, which does mean it has a full auto mode. And all you need to do is just have one slime block, and then just replace this block over here with a slime block, and then just place your rail over there with your minecart. Now it's at fully automatic mode because the slime block actually prevents the rail from breaking. So now you can just take a seat, relax, and even have like storage behind you so that if you need to put in all your items, you can do so that if you die of like, I don't know, if you die, you don't lose all your stuff. So there's a few ways to stop the machine. Most common one is just to break the cart, but you can also aim for the slime block if you don't have a tool to do it. Let's talk about the design of the machine. So back here, you're not only looking at the control room, but also the engine that actually times when this machine should engage with the ice bridge. So this is where you will sit and basically place down rails, which will slowly engage with the machine, pushing it forward. Now it has a timing belt that times exactly how many ticks it should wait before it engages with this intermediary step, which will push the armor stand, and then finally push this frontal area that will pull the ice forward. So I'm going to show you by freezing the game exactly how it works. So I'm going to place a rail here to basically prime it, and you'll see it's going to step forward, and it's now ready to engage not just with the ice bridge machine itself, but also with the timing belt. So you can see it pushes this front nose part into the machine, and it pulls the timing belt. The first step breaks the rail. The second step places a block so that you can replace the rail. Then you wrap around, and it basically just puts the ignition next to the minecart again. So I'm going to place a rail there, and I just want to show you from this perspective how it works. So it pushes it, it's ready to engage, and now you can see it breaks the rail. It has a space available for you to place the rail. And now I'm going to skip the back and jump to the front of it. And now you can see that it's engaged with the ice bridge machine, which now pushed the armor stand forward and frozen all of the ice. It then pushes this front section, but will pull 2 of the ice blocks forward. And now the timing takes place where it basically fills up all the water. Now you see this little block over here, right? You can see the whole system is ready to push, but this little block is still not filled with water. So I'm going to do this 1 tick at a time just to show you. 2 ticks later, the water's filled. And then 2 ticks later, the system has pushed to freeze the water. So if you make the system any faster than it already is, unfortunately, that 1 block of water is not going to freeze, and then the system's not going to work. That's just how it is. So at the end, it will always remain in a state where water is flowing. It's just how I built the machine. So when you see the water flowing, it's not that the machine is broken, it's just that it's waiting for the next sequence to first freeze, and then it will resume flowing again. Okay, and yeah, that is everything about how this machine works. Oh yeah, so you can see this intermediary step and these 2 railings on the sides, they're optional. So if you don't want them, you can easily just break them down like so, and the whole system will still work. It just won't build you any railings. So these are just 2 railing builders, nothing big about them. And let me just stop that water from flowing. And an intermediary step just to position the machine far enough so that nothing sticks to the main engine. Now you want to get rid of that piston there as well. And now when you engage with the machine, you see the machine still works exactly perfectly, and the timing is still perfect. So this is the minimum of what you can get away with, and it's really not that expensive to build. Okay, and just to demonstrate, you can also stop the machine by breaking that slime block. Alright, so let me show you what you need to build this machine. So you need a stack of some decorative block, you need 2 water buckets. I like to bring a stone cutter so that I can actually cut the blocks that I've brought along into whatever I need. 8 buttons, 20 pistons, 60 sign blocks, and 16 observers. Now all of this items has been brought with the idea that you have plus minus 3 to 5 additional items once you're done building. That's just because you will eventually lose stuff to the void, and this is to prevent you from, having to run up and down for it. 4 armor stands, 3 frostwalker boots, make sure they're frostwalker 2, 8 detector rails, a minecart with a chest, as well as 2 minecarts. Now I did mention that there is extras, so if you really want to slim down, you can get away with just 1 armor stand, 1 frostwalker boot, and then you can also cut down on some slime, observers, and yeah, that's about it if you do want to. But I highly recommend building the side rail guards because it's really easy to fall off of an ice bridge if it doesn't have any. So what you want to do is you want to pick yourself a nice thick pillar and then come into this corner and start digging down up until you can see the void. Right, when you see the void like this, you want to stop, grab a bucket and place it down below that block. You then want to harvest the block, and then while you're at it, grab your water again. Now using your decorative block, you want to go all the way to the bottom. And when I say all the way, I mean all the way. And you want to place it there at the bottommost level. Then switch over to your wasteful block. Since you've got a lot of redstone, I'd recommend using that since, you've just accumulated quite a bit of it. Then off to the side, I like to build just around the corner up until you're around here to get this little 4x4 section. And this is where we're going to put an infinite water source, just so that it makes it easier to build all of what you need to build. So go ahead and place yourself an infinite water source, fill up your buckets, and then return to your actual block over here. So what you want to do is you want to place 7 blocks to in front of the pillar. You'll see here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the middle, 5, 6, and 7 blocks placed. You can also fill up this with your endstone temporary blocks. Now starting with the middle, you want to build out 1 decorative block, and then on both sides you want to make a 2x2 slime square. And then finish it off with a decorative block at each corner. So you'll end up with this pattern. Use more endstone to basically build out 2 from one of the slime squares and place an observer facing into it, well, not facing but pointing into a slime block. And then we're going to need 2 sticky pistons. So what I like to do is bring the amount of slime blocks, but I am going to need like 6, 7, 8 sticky pistons. So let me craft those already. Right, so now that we have ourselves sticky pistons, let's place them in here, in there, and then we can put them aside for now. We want this little slime block to be 4 high, like so. And now we want to fill up this entire thing here with water. So from here to this point over here, these 2 rows, you want all of them filled with water. There we go. If you've done that successfully, you should now be able to equip Frostwalker boots and freeze this entire area over here. And you should be able to see these 2 slime blocks sticking out. Be sure to switch back to your normal boots because this is going to get a little bit annoying if you don't do that. What you want to do is place 1 temporary block over there and then place a piston facing into another piston like so. So I want 3 of them, so I'm just going to grab that. I'm done with the water, so I'm going to move that out of my hotbar. And then I want to grab my button and I want to push that whole system forward. Now luckily there is blocks below you, so you shouldn't be falling to your doom. Just jump up, equip your frost walkers, freeze the water, normal boots, and then place another piston in over there. So what you want to do is from the back, just trigger all of them, put on your ice walker boots, take them off again, push the next one, freeze the water, take off your boots, and the last one, freeze the water and put up back your boots. So now you have enough space to actually build the next section of the machine. Make sure you freeze this little block over here as well. So you want to take 2 temporary blocks like so. You want to place one normal piston over there, the observer pointing into it, and a slime block over there. There we go. So now let's grab ourselves the stone cutter, just slap it up out of the way, and we're going to put up 8 blocks in for slabs. So I want 16 slabs, and while I'm at it, I'm also going to get 5 stairs. I don't need the stairs now, so I'm just going to put to one side. I'm going to place a slab over here along with one of these armor stands, and I'm going to equip the Frostwalker boots for it. Behind that, I'm going to place one temporary block, a slime block, and I'm going to place a piston to push the slime block. But before I push the slime block, I do want a sticky piston on top of it, facing away, with another slime block over there, and an observer facing in this way. Make sure to break the temporary block. Oop. Now we can power that piston, basically push it, and then power this piston to pull it back. There we go. So we should have this setup. Now what you want to do is this piston over here, you can't just push it with a normal button, otherwise that armor stand will escape. But what you want to do is you want to place a temporary block over here with a observer facing into it, and now you want to go and trigger that observer by just placing a button into it. There we go. Now you want to grab the observer, have it facing into this block, and then power that, and that should push the system off by one more block, like so. Let's equip another set of Frostwalkers just to walk out all of this. There we go. And take it off again. Okay. So now what you want to do is you want to push this entire system out by another 3 pistons. So we'll do 1, 2, 3 of them. Just like that. Now you can break all 3 of them. That should give you more than enough space to build the side rails. Now the way how you build it, I'm going to do one and then just copy it for the other side. From this little slime block over here, you want to build off 2 to the side, add a sticky piston, and make sure that you power it with an observer, like so. Then you want to have 1 slime block as a buffer. You want to place a temporary block over there with a slab, and then 2 temporary blocks off to the side. Now this is where your second armor stand is going to be sitting, so place that on top of it, as well as giving it its Frostwalker boots, and you want to push a slime into it the same way we did previously, so build that on that side. Break all the temporary blocks to make sure that you don't accidentally push them into the thing, and then power the piston to push it in. So there we have the part that's going to freeze the water, but we do still need something that actually, you know, moves the water in the correct way. So what you want to do is put a piston over there, place a temporary block, and make sure to power that piston with an observer, like so. And then you want to place slime block, temporary block. And then off to the side of the temporary block, you want 2 slime blocks like that. On this side, you want to place a slab sticking out, and then you want to have 1 gap and place a slab with a slime block on top of it. So you kind of have like this little queue thing going on. On the other side, by the boots, you want to place another slab over there, slime block over there. We can now go ahead and grab our water sources, and you're going to place 1 over there, 1 over there, pull them up. Basically just complete this entire line with water. Cool. Place a temporary block and equip one of these frost walker boots, just so that you can freeze it and get yourself the headache of having been pushed by water out of mind, like that. Now temporarily I like to place another slime block and a slab over there, just to prevent the water from flowing annoyingly. I like to place another slab there, and everything should still be working, so don't mind it. I'm going to duplicate everything for this side quickly. Now you want to place 2 slime blocks. Now this is a temporary slime block over here, just mentioning that. And then place up the piston there, facing this way. Now you want to push out 8 pistons. So that'll be 1. That is going to be 2. And that should be 8. There we go. And then you want to power each one of them individually. And break all of them. There we go. So now that we have all of this done, everything worked perfectly. So now you can exit troubleshooting mode and actually build the machine. So I'm going to break that. Also that there. I mean, you can keep it, but I prefer not to have them, because the water can be useful for if you're falling from a height and then you have water to break your fall. Cool. So now from this slime block, what you want to do is leave a 1 block gap, place a temporary block, and put a normal piston on top of it. Now this piston will have an observer powering it, and it has a slime block connected to it. So that is basically the way how you're going to start building the engine. And off to the one side, you're going to build 1 to the side, 1 up, and 1 inwards, like so. On the other side, you're going to be placing the sticky piston and having an observer powering it. You then want to go out 4 slime blocks, like so. Jump on the machine, and then get your decorative block. You want to leave 1 gap by that slime block there, and then place 2 of the decorative blocks over here. Now, I'd recommend this is where you pull out your stairs, as this will make it a lot easier to understand. And what you want to do is on the slime block by the gap, you want to place 1 of those stairs there. You want to place another one over here, and a 3rd one over here. You can then go ahead and grab your rail, place it in there, and put your cart on top of it. Now be sure to remove the rail, because we don't want to start the machine by an accident. So yeah, make sure to remove that rail over there. Now off to the last bit of this slime block, you want to grab and get yourself 2 more sticky pistons. So you want to place 1 of them over there, and then you want to do a little zigzag maneuver and place a 2nd one over there. Now at the bottom of the slime block, you want to place an observer facing the ice, and the same for this one over here. Then you want to go out another 2. And let's make this easier for us by placing a stair there, and a slab here. We know we need to go out the 3rd one, coming down, and then having our decorative block placed like that. So this is the stairs to walk up. You can put 2 slabs over here, 1 over there, and finally you can put the last 2 over here to complete this little stair to the seat. Off to the side of this, you want to place 1 slime block there with an observer facing outwards and a piston pointing backwards. You want to leave 1 air gap, so you can use a temporary block for that, and then 2 decorative blocks over here with a slime block and a piston, like so. Now what you want to do is you want to trigger this piston, push that whole payload so that it's primed and ready to launch. I think this thing's 1 too long. Yes, I've built this 1 too long. Alright, sorry about that. Let's chop off this layer over here. Place a observer down there. Grab the sticky piston as such. Make sure to remove that temporary block so you don't accidentally trigger the system. And then just pull the whole thing closer. Sorry about that. I really forgot that this thing not supposed to be that long. There we go. So now the whole system is ready to run. Now for the chest. So what I like to do for the chest is on the side of the sign block, just for it to sit, I like to place a slab over there and then a slab right over there for it to sit on. I can waste the remaining 2 slabs over there just to have it all neat and tied up. So place a wall block on top of that with a rail and the chest minecart on top of it. Break the rail, break the block, and the chest minecart now snugly fits into that little gap. Then break the one slab to the side so that the entire system actually has a gap to work with. If you don't do this, you will unfortunately damage the machine. So make sure that that gap is not closed by anything. And this is the whole machine. So now, for a demonstration, I'm just gonna empty my hotbar, grab myself some rails, place it in there, the system's gonna push it and reset. Repeat that. System is going to push and reset, and doing a quick little double check. It seems like everything is working as expected, so I can now go ahead and go into semi-automatic mode and just hold it in. So the system does have one flaw linked to it. While the machine is running and you are sitting in the seat, imagine you suddenly disconnect. I'm going to simulate that. I just want to make sure my render distance is quite high. So I want to go ahead just move a few chunks away, so that should be 2, 3, 4, 5. That should be fine. Now I'm going to drop my render distance. Boom, to 2 chunks. This is basically me disconnecting instantly while the machine was running. Now let me return to the island, and I'm going to give myself a render distance of, let's say, so that you can see it, let's say 6. So this is now a new player coming along. Now this player comes and he flies or takes the ice boat, whatnot, and he stumbles on the machine. Now the machine, unfortunately, because you loaded it in 2 separate chunks, crashed. So the whole machine basically broke. It's in this state over here. You can see that we have armor stands that's glitched out on... I don't even want to know how that was possible. I guess the armor stand fell off and all of them gathered to the middle. It's not the worst case, but yeah. In general, the whole machine was broken. So this is why I do not recommend you utilize the automatic mode if you're on a server with, you know, bad stability, because you can end up in a situation where you lose quite a lot of the machine. Oh, hey, thanks for sticking around, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.